Today it's all Linux versus Windows versus macOS. Which is the best operating system? If you have ever asked yourself this question, here's the answer. Hi everybody, welcome to the Digital Life. My name is Christian and I'm always teaching you how to become an IT professional. So if you are interested in learning Linux, Python, cloud, networking and all those stuff, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. So when you read on social media or watch YouTube videos, you will notice it. People always argue about operating systems. Some say Linux is just better than Windows or macOS is just for stupid fanboys. To be fair, some arguments may have some small truth in it. But overall, people are just complaining about everything they don't like. You will also find lots of people, especially in the Linux community, who always complain about everything that is not open source or even complain about different Linux distributions or single applications. I respect them for being very enthusiastic and most of the time they have a decent knowledge of technology. But on the other hand, I believe thinking in these stereotypes doesn't help your IT career. If you are that kind of person, probably consider to change your mindset. Trust me, I don't want to convince you to use a specific operating system, but let me tell you from my experience of many years working in the IT industry and working in enterprise companies. And finally, you may decide for yourself which is the best operating system for you. First, I want to tell you Linux, Windows and macOS are just all amazing. They are all very solid, secure and flexible operating system and they can suit almost everything from beginner to pro. They may have some major differences in certain areas, but overall you can just work with every one of them. In my years of working in the IT industry, I've worked with Linux, with Windows and also with macOS many years. And I've gone through lots of issues, but I also think every single operating system has its positive aspects, and that's what I want to tell you. In the end, it doesn't really matter which operating system you're using. But what's the difference then, right? So, although they are really good in all areas, they have some strengths and weaknesses in specific ones. I don't want to talk about every single advantage or disadvantage, but I want to give you a brief overview of what I've come across in my IT career. So Linux undoubtedly is the most used operating system when it comes to servers, to running services like websites or web applications or in cloud environments. Linux is just everywhere, and if you want to become a real IT professional, you definitely need to learn Linux. But that doesn't actually mean that you need to use Linux as your main desktop operating system. To be honest with you, Linux desktop environments can be very frustrating. That splitting and forking of every desktop environment on Linux is just confusing, and I think it really doesn't help the Linux community. It often seems like everybody is running his own thing or somebody is reinventing the wheel. There are millions of ways of how to configure a Linux desktop experience, and that is not always an advantage. You can spend hours and hours to configure your desktop environment, and sometimes you just want to get things done. On the other hand, if you really like to configure every single bit of an operating system, and if you're not afraid of running into trouble or issues, then Linux is much more fun than Windows or macOS. So Windows is the most commonly used desktop operating system for computers, and that's just because it is very easy and intuitive and it can run almost every software on it. It also has a very great hardware compatibility. Almost everything is just plug and play. Some people might say that Windows is less secure than Linux or Windows, but I don't think that is actually true anymore. Windows these days comes with a lot of great security tools like Windows Defender, a built-in firewall or Windows Sandboxing, just to name a few ones of them. And don't let anybody tell you there are no viruses for macOS or Linux. It just gives you a completely false sense of security. Although security vulnerabilities are much more often abused on Windows because it's just so commonly used, that doesn't mean that there are no security vulnerabilities existing for Linux or macOS. Always be aware of when you are affected by a malware on Linux or macOS and you don't have any protection at all. That can be much more painful than on Windows. Also, Microsoft has been much more open to open source in the last past days. Just have a look at the Windows subsystem for Linux, which is very nice, and also some smaller projects like the Windows Terminal, which is completely open source. I mean, this is nothing compared to Linux, but it's just funny to see a big company like Microsoft finally changed a bit their philosophy about open source. Although many people might hate Windows for whatever reason, it still outperforms Linux and macOS when it comes to usability and compatibility. If you want to use a Macintosh or not, that really depends if you get in love with Apple's ecosystem. That doesn't mean you have to buy all Apple products, but it can make sense in some areas because they have some great built-in integrations between their products, which is not available for anything else. On the other hand, it can be very frustrating if you try to break out of it. You will also notice that many high-skilled people in the IT industry will use Macintosh, especially when they are working in software development. And that's just because Macintosh is a Unix-based operating system, and you can combine those interesting features of having a Unix-based operating system with these business applications that are available on macOS but not on Linux. It's also very accepted in the creative industries such as graphics design, music production or video editing. A lot of powerful applications in this area are highly focused on Macintosh. Although these devices have their unique and beautiful look and design, they are often more expensive compared to personal computers with same hardware components, and you also need to accept Apple's stupid repair terms and conditions. So if you're wondering which operating system I'm using in my day-to-day work, I'm a very creative and also very technical person. I like to learn new things, I'm very technical enthusiastic, and I just want to know how things are really working. But I really don't care about an operating system. An operating system for me is just a tool to get my work done. And when I want to create YouTube videos, play computer games or do those technical research, I just need a flexible operating system that can run any application I want to use, and that is actually Windows. That doesn't mean I don't know how Linux is working. You know, I do a lot of great Linux tutorials on my channel, and I also use Linux in my day-to-day work when I use it on servers or on virtual machines. And Windows Subsystem for Linux is really a blessing for me because I can just use a Windows desktop environment, and when I open a terminal I just feel more comfortable with the Linux way of doing it. So don't overcomplicate this whole stuff, just use an operating system that can run all your applications and that best fits your requirements. Just see it as your tool and really think of what is my workflow, what are you really doing with your computer, and which operating system is best to achieve that goal. Many people just like me are also using all different operating systems in virtual machines or test labs and something else, so it really doesn't matter which is your main desktop operating system. So you can finally see saying something like Linux is better than Windows or macOS is just better than blah blah blah, that's just stupid. Because it's just a general statement from someone who may have completely different workflows, who may have completely different skills. And that being said, we all are just human. We all have our personal favorites, our personal opinions, and that's just okay. Except that somebody else might not like what you like. So don't judge anybody for using a different operating system, saying they are noob or something else. Just understand that in IT career it's much more important to know how things are really working instead of just using a specific operating system. That doesn't make you an expert, right? So I hope you liked this kind of video. I mean, I know the truth may hurt somebody, but I really don't care. I mean, I'm just telling you from my experience. I always want to be open and honest with you, and that's just my opinion, right? It may not be yours. Anyway, please tell me in the comments which operating system you are using, and please don't forget, be respectful and honest to people. So thanks again for watching everybody, enjoy the rest of your day, take care of yourself, and I see you soon.